A man that stands for everything stands for nothing. You've got to be willing to risk conflict and controversy in order to truly have an opinion. There are so many guys today that are fearful of expressing how they feel. Sometimes even to the closest people in their lives, like their wife, for example. They're afraid of sharing their own political belief to their wife in the fear that their wife might get upset and then, I don't know, not show any intimacy anymore or even leave them eventually. So they almost live like this private life where they can only really express those opinions behind closed doors, maybe to one or two friends. And some people aren't even comfortable enough to share their true opinions with their friends either. You can't live a life where you're treading around eggshells, scared. No, look, don't get me wrong. There are situations where you have to be strategic and pick your battles. I do agree with that. You know, in the workplace, if you are employed, you have to choose your battles carefully. In certain situations, keeping that opinion to yourself works out in your favor. But at least you still have an opinion. You know, well, no, I agree. Yeah, whatever you say, yeah. Because there are guys out there, you know, that just nod along to everything. And that is a weak position to be in. It gives off weakness. It really does. Yeah, no, you're right. You're 100%. Yeah, I'm all for that, you know. And especially when it comes to the dynamic between a man and a woman, you know, you're getting to know a girl in the early stages. She gives you an opinion that you don't really agree with. But for the sake of getting some play, you're like, well, no, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I don't think it's right. And you might believe that she will look at you more fondly when you agree to everything she says. After the first one or two opinions that you both agree on, she's going to start pushing a little bit further and seeing, is this guy really going to say yes to everything that I believe in? Is he not going to push back? Because women actually like it when you have your own opinion. They do. Even if in the moment they show signs of frustration or potentially even disappointment in your opinions and beliefs about certain things, they still respect you for having those opinions. Because it shows that you're willing to risk conflict. You're not just going to be like, no, honey, I'm sorry, honey. I didn't mean to say that. Have an opinion, for goodness sakes. Have a spine. Stand for something. You know, in a situation where you can express yourself, express yourself. Don't worry about losing a friend because of an opinion you have. You know, good friendships are all about challenging each other, right? If you don't feel like you can voice your opinion on something without somebody else throwing a tantrum and running away and deciding not to be your friend anymore, well, then you got the wrong circle around you. You know, the friends that I have, I can say some of the craziest stuff to. And they will push back. And they will say, well, Ali, hang on a second. Have you considered this? Right? Have you considered that? And I push back on them as well. They may say something and I'm like, hang on a second. You're seeing it the wrong way completely, bro. This is what's truly happening. And there's a nice pushback. There's a dialogue, right? It's not just, yeah. Challenge each other. Do not live in fear over causing a bit of conflict. Embrace it. It is what it is. This is what I stand for. And look, if this is an absolute deal breaker for you and you're not willing to, you know, engage in a discourse, a healthy discourse, of course, not one where you're hurling insults at each other. That should never be the approach. If you have a disagreement with somebody on a fundamental thing, engage respectfully back and forth. And if you still can't meet eye to eye on a certain things, then yeah, it may be the best course of action to take to part ways, whether that's in a romantic sense with a girl that you're speaking to. If there are conflicting core values and you've had that discussion and you just can't seem to find alignment, wish her the very best and move on. It could also be the same for friendships as well, right? You have that discourse back and forth and there's just a complete fundamental difference in how you view life. See, on the fundamentals, there may be, further conflict going forwards if you continue this relationship with this person. Let's just say, for example, somebody's a fundamental racist who doesn't engage in healthy discourse. Now, let me just put it out there. I think every male friendship group has a healthy level of racism. I'm just going to say this right now. I'm going to shock some people, right? I have friends of all different kinds of ethnicities and backgrounds, and we take the piss out of each other's ethnicities. I think that's a very normal man thing to do, right? They take the piss out of me, I take the piss out of them. There's some banter right there. Put that to the side. There's another type that is dead serious about the way they feel about a certain ethnicity, and they cannot entertain any alternative view on these people, right? In that case, there is a real issue because this person is purely ignorant. They're very ignorant and they cannot engage in a respectful conversation where they can entertain a different viewpoint on a certain group of people, right? They're just like, no, I hate them, this, that, right? Whether somebody hates Muslims or Jewish people or whatever, right? If I feel like, hang on a second, this guy's not joking, this guy's genuinely a racist, in that case, you know what, part ways. Because you're not responsible for changing this person. They have to be willing to challenge their own perspectives. And you can tell when somebody's willing to challenge their own perspectives because they're open. They're open-minded to having a conversation. And they're like, you know what? I didn't think about it this way. So you mean to tell me that, and then, you have that conversation. You can tell from their body language as well. They lean in and they're like, Rhea, I never knew that. See, I was always told. And then there's that back and forth conversation. But when someone's purely ignorant, they're very closed. No, they're all like that. And they cut you off and they speak over you and this, that. And they're very damaged and hurt. They are. And it usually stems from some sort of trauma, either that they've experienced directly or something that maybe their family, their parents experienced. It's usually always the parents. The first 8 years of life, kids really develop a lot of these core beliefs. And this is why the Spartans used to take kids away from their parents within the first 8 years of life, because that's when you're most impressionable. And so if you grew up in a home, for example, that hated Muslims and spoke very negatively of them in the first 8 years of your life, then that's all you heard. You're going to have an impression on them. You're going to have your guard up. You're going to feel threatened by Islam and Muslims, right? And this could also apply if somebody's a black person. And let's say you grew up in a family that disliked black people. You're going to have a certain attitude towards them, right? And this could apply to so many different situations here. I'm just giving you guys a couple of examples. But the first 8 years is when that real, core beliefs are built, right? So look, have your opinion. Say what you mean what you say. But as a man, be willing to learn, be willing to grow, be willing to unlearn. Because part of growth is unlearning some of the BS that you learned. Not everything that you consumed and you acquired was good information. Some of that information was wrong, purely ignorant. So part of growth is unlearning a lot of what you've been fed over the years. You know, when somebody challenges their own beliefs, it shows intelligence. It really does. Because it shows that, you know what, maybe what I learned was wrong. Maybe I need to re-look at this from a totally different angle. Let me go back. Where did I actually acquire this information from? Okay, my parents. Where did they get it from? Their parents. Okay. But is any of this true? What was their source? You know, where did it all start from? You know, it shows intelligence. It really does. So, look, have a spine, have a backbone, believe in what you say, but be willing to challenge your beliefs in order to grow. Thanks for watching this video, gents. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a like. For those of you that don't know, I run a community on School called the Top 3%, where we teach men how to improve their style, their communication skills, their relationships, how to build a network of strong men around them, all around the world. So if you want to find out more about this community, feel free to click on the link down in the description below. And I'd love to welcome you inside. We have members all around the world, from Morocco to Mexico to Germany. I look forward to welcoming you inside. Thanks very much. Take care.